Three girls, Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle are practicing witchcraft in the backyard, and that's where it begins. Welcome to Random Recaps. In this video, I am going to recap the movie. We meet a girl named Sarah Bailey who moves with her father and stepmother to Los Angeles. Sarah has always felt different from other young people her age, mainly because she can cause strange phenomena around her, especially when she finds herself in extreme situations. The next day, Sarah goes to school, St. Benedict's Catholic Academy. The three witches say they hope a fourth girl will appear to join them. In French class, Bonnie realizes that Sarah is moving a pencil with her mind. Sarah notices Bonnie staring at her and loses concentration. Bonnie tells her friends that the girl who will be the fourth is at the school, although Nancy refuses to let Sarah sit with them. Later, Sarah meets a boy named Chris. Sarah tells him that some girls rejected her. Chris, realizing this, suggests staying away from them, as people rumor that they are witches. Later, Sarah goes to see Chris playing football, and the witches appear and apologize to Sarah for treating her badly before. They introduce themselves and invite her out, speaking badly of Chris. Sarah goes with them. The witches realize that Sarah cut her wrists. Sarah and the witches enter a witchcraft store. There she meets the store owner, Lirio, who gives her a book called The Craft to learn more about witchcraft, as Sarah knows nothing about it and doesn't even practice it. When leaving the store, Sarah meets a homeless man who tells her he dreamed about her.
In my dream, you are dead!
Sarah runs away, and on the other side of the street, she stares at the homeless man, who is then hit by a car. Sarah and the witches run away, revealing that they all thought about having the man run over. Bonnie assures Sarah that she is the fourth, which they need to invoke the 4 cardinal points for a special ritual. They tell her about a pagan entity called Manon, describing it as a being that is neither good nor evil, but rather an elemental force of nature in which everything is unified. Nancy says,
"If God and the devil were playing football, Manon would be the stadium that they played on."
Sarah tells them that strange things happen to her, but the things she wishes for never turn out the way she wants. Nancy, somewhat jealous, doesn't believe Sarah has that power. Sarah is scared by everything about Manon, so she leaves. Later, Sarah goes out with Chris. There, Chris kisses Sarah. Chris invites her to his house, but Sarah refuses. The next day, the witches tell Sarah that Chris spread the rumor that he and Sarah had sex.
Told you he was a jerk.
Sarah goes to confront Chris, although Chris doesn't care anymore since he humiliated Sarah. Meanwhile, Rochelle is in a swimming class, and some girls mock her. Bonnie has burned scars that disfigured her back, and she undergoes an operation to try to remove her scars. That night, Sarah remembers when she attempted suicide. Then we see that Nancy lives in poverty with a dysfunctional family. The next day, Nancy invites Sarah to a witchcraft session. They go to the woods to perform their witchcraft ritual. During Sarah's initiation, the girls make particular wishes. Rochelle wishes for the ability not to hate those who hate her. Sarah asks to love herself more and allow herself to be more loved by others, especially Chris. Bonnie wishes to be more beautiful inside and out, and Nancy asks for all of Manon's power. Suddenly, butterflies appear, and the girls believe it's Manon. The next day at school, the girls think the wish is working since Chris seems more interested in Sarah, and he tells her that he will tell his friends the truth. That night, the girls spend time together and play light as a feather. They manage to make Rochelle float in the air. The girls are surprised by their powers, but Bonnie's mother walks in, and Rochelle falls. Later, Sarah spends much more time with the girls, becoming good friends. One day, Sarah pulls out a hair from Laura, the girl who bothered Rochelle, and casts a spell to make her go bald. Meanwhile, Bonnie asks Manon to remove her scars.
My scars. Take my scars. Take my scars.
The next day at the pool, we see Laura's hair falling out, and Bonnie's scars are falling off. Thanks to this, she returns to school with more confidence in herself. Bonnie and Rochelle thank Sarah since she cast the spells, making Nancy jealous. After that, we see Nancy asking for Manon's power. In a family fight, her powers are unleashed, and she causes her stepfather to die, leaving her mother and her covered by his substantial life insurance policy of $175,000. After that, the friends visit Nancy at her new apartment. Nancy teaches the girls a new illusion spell she found. Sarah says she can do it, so she changes her eyes to brown. The girls aren't too impressed.
You want something bigger?
So Sarah turns her hair blonde and then back to her original color. Later, Chris looks for Sarah as he's still under the love spell. After that, the girls go to the store. Sarah tells Lirio that she wants to undo the love spell, but Lirio says it can't be undone. Lirio tells the witches that whatever they do will come back to them threefold. Nancy buys an invoking spirit book, and the girls go to the beach to summon Manon. They perform the ritual. A storm appears, and Nancy asks for her powers. A lightning bolt strikes Nancy, giving her much more power than her friends. The next day, her friends see her walking on water. Then we see that sharks washed up dead on the beach. Nancy believes it's a gift from Manon.
These are my gifts! What?
Sarah asks them to stop all the witchcraft, as they feel they are going too far. Sarah realizes that her friends are becoming proud and abusive. Bonnie becomes narcissistic after being freed from her scars. Rochelle acts even more arrogant and rude than Laura was, and Nancy is drunk with power. Sarah warns them that what they're doing could come back to haunt them, but her friends don't care. Sarah and Nancy argue. The next day, Rochelle notices that Laura is even balder and crying. Chris calls Sarah and asks her out. Sarah accepts. That night, they go out together. But due to the spell, Chris doesn't know what he's talking about since he can only feel love for Sarah. Sarah tries to escape Chris's intensity, but Chris tries to abuse her. Sarah flees to Rochelle's house and later tells the girls what happened. Nancy wants to play with Chris, so she goes to a party where he is. The two of them go to a room in the house together. Nancy wants to have sex with Chris, but Chris asks her to leave. So Nancy uses the illusion spell to look like Sarah and starts kissing him. The other friends arrive at the party. There, Sarah finds Chris and Nancy kissing. Nancy tells Chris that Sarah bewitched him to love her. Chris tells Nancy that she's just jealous, making Nancy angry. She causes Chris to fall out the window. The next day, Sarah tells her father that she didn't want any of this to happen. After that, Sarah cuts a photo of Nancy and casts a spell on her so that she can't harm anyone. That night, Sarah dreams of the witches trying to strangle her. The next day at school, Sarah hides from her friends, but they find her. Sarah tells them she wants to separate from the group. The group doesn't care if Sarah is with them anymore, as they see her as a traitor. Nancy tells her not to cast any more spells to stop her. After that, Sarah goes to find Lirio to ask for help. Lirio shows her a temple with a power center. Lirio tells Sarah that she has great power within her. Lirio tells her that to defeat Nancy, she has to summon Manon, but when she tries to summon him, Nancy intervenes. Sarah runs away scared. When she gets home, she realizes her parents aren't there. Nancy calls her and says her parents flew to San Francisco and died in an accident. The girls try to scare Sarah with snakes and all kinds of animals. Sarah is terrified with fear. Nancy appears and urges Sarah to commit. Sarah realizes it was all an illusion. Sarah confronts the witches. The witches cast a spell to kill Sarah. Sarah is terrified, and Nancy mocks her for being weak. Bonnie and Rochelle think it's enough torment, but Nancy is willing to kill her. Bonnie and Rochelle go to find Sarah. Sarah makes Bonnie and Rochelle have hallucinations to scare them away. Sarah's mother, who is also a witch, helps her complete the ritual and summon Manon to gain the power-up. And the final fight between Sarah and Nancy begins. Sarah tells Nancy that Manon is furious that she abused her power. Sarah scares Nancy with illusions. Nancy can't stop her since Sarah is more powerful for being a natural witch. Nancy tries to make peace with Sarah, but Sarah doesn't believe her at all. so she casts a spell on Nancy so she can't harm anyone else. Then Nancy attacks her and thinks she killed her. But no, Sarah kicks her and throws her against the glass, casting the spell to take away her powers so she can't harm anyone else. Days later, Bonnie and Rochelle come to apologize, and they tell Sarah that the thing about her parents was just an illusion. They also tell Sarah that they no longer have powers, but she does, and she makes lightning strike to prove it to them.
Be careful. You don't end up like Nancy.
After that, we see Nancy in a mental institution, having lost all her powers, leaving her crazier than before. And that's how the movie ends.